Hi there. This is my journey into installing one of these active systems. I really don't know an awful lot about it, and there's quite a lot of conflicting stuff on the net. However, I've decided to go for a new installation, and this is what I'm going to document. So, which programmer did I need to choose? Well, the two main ones on the market are Hive and Nest, and I had to look long and hard before I decided. In the end, I went for Hive for a couple of reasons. First of all, £75 cheaper. Makes a difference that. The thermostat has a battery pack in it rather than having to be wired in. If you want to wire it in directly, you've got to have, I think it's 24 volts from the control unit. You have a wire through, and I haven't got that at the moment. Or you've got to have a charger and USB connection. And in my house, I wanted the thermostat to replace the existing standard thermostat, so it's sort of 2/3 of the way up the wall with no plugs below it. So that was another real issue for me. Also, although there's quite a bit of intelligence in the Hive one, the Nest one has such a lot of intelligence, all this active intelligence where it plans your heating on what you're doing and the frequency of it and so on. So at the end of the day, I suppose simplicity won over. Although a lot of people think, British Gas is not up to the power of Google, but let's wait and find out, eh? Here's the thermostat with the cover removed. I've just checked all the powers off. And there are the wires I now have to cap off. These are neutral, live, and switched live as well to the junction box in the other part of the heating system. So I'll just cap those off now. Well, here we are now. I've isolated each of those wires. They're in the box there. The thermostat has the mount. I'm going to undo that and attach the mount for the Hive thermostat. Here's the Hive thermostat here. Let's just drop it on the floor and have a little look at it. It's got a clip that comes off like that. There it is. I'll attach that to the wall, and then this is the mounting thermostat this here. It looks really sweet, doesn't it? Let's just do that and then let's have a little look. So there's the backing plate mounted. It's got two little adjusting screws there. Not very happy with that. They're really quite fragile, and I imagine you could pull them through. Perhaps a couple of small little washers in there might make a difference. Anyway, here's the comparison now, look. So there's the new device, there's the 30-year-old device. So this one now goes away, and this one can go in place. I'm only putting it here temporarily while I just go and test the system out. So onto the top like that seems like an idea. Goes in, clicks in place. There we are, job done. Looks really nice. Still got the little protective cover on, but we'll take that off. We'll put the batteries in and power it up. So next thing is me to go into the loft area of my house, find the junction box, and then isolate those three wires that were there. Remember, they were neutral, live, and live switched, and then that circuit then is completely obsolete, but I might need it later on, you never know. So we're about to go and look at the junction box. Here's a diagram made of the junction box. It's a bit of a rat's nest really. It's very poor actually, and when I finish the installation of the Hive system, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a new junction box in place and neaten it all up. Anyway, there are 4 wires that are going through. This installation is approximately 30 years old, so of course the old colours were neutral blue, red live, and then any extra lives would be yellow and blue. And on the new installation, the new wires that I might put into it at some stage, perhaps say in the boiler that I've got, neutral will be blue, live will be brown, and then live 2 would be black, and live 3 would be grey, and so on. So here we are. So I've highlighted here the 3 wires that I'm going to have to do something with. So they are the other ends of the thermostat in the lounge. So there's a red, a blue and a yellow, as you remember. And I'm going to disconnect those and then just cap them off again. And I may use them at a later date. So I've now come up to the loft space in my garage, taken a couple of boards up and having a bit of a look. So you can see in the system this here, this is S-plan. We know that because it has 2 thermostatically controlled valves. The one on the left being the heating, the one on the right being for the hot water, and then pre that is the pump. These 3 items are wired into a junction box. So I'm going to take the top off the junction box and let's see what happens. But before I do that, just remind you about what we looked at previously, which was the diagram I made from this before we started, and the 3 wires that I need to remove. So come over to here, lift this off. Of course, everything is disconnected at the moment and it is a real mess, isn't it? This needs to be replaced with something a bit more organized and tidy. Right, the wires on here are labeled from left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4, just in pencil. If I just pick a couple there, you can see them there, look. There they are. And wire 3 is the one that goes down to the thermostat in my hallway. So that's the one that I'm going to take out and disconnect. So from white wire 3 on the right hand side, you can see there the blue, yellow and red have been disconnected from the connector blocks along here and have been connected into this connector block to isolate them completely. There's nothing going through them. I think I just keep giving me peace of mind, and it looks nice and neat and safe if someone comes up to this later on, if I don't get around to changing this box, but I intend to do that fairly rapidly. Brown seems to be the control wire that's used on both the pump in terminal 1 and on the heating here in terminal 6. This is the key thing here that we've got to put in and connect to our programmer timer downstairs by the central heating boiler. So this one here is the next one to be moved. So I'm going to move that and connect it to the red that's coming up from that terminal. And I know from doing continuity tests, wire 1 red going to terminal block 3 here is coming directly from the programmer. So that's the one for the heating on. So I'm going to connect a valve to heating on and hopefully things should work. Last bit then. So as we look here, we can see the red wire coming from wire 1. Go over to my diagram. There it is there. Is terminal 4 on the controller. That's the controller for the heating. The heating pump is the brown wire here. So the brown wire is connected to that red. So that now means the heating valve is connected to terminal 4 on the timer next to my boiler. So that means this looks like it's finished here for the moment. Okay, it looks a bit of a disaster. That's what I've inherited, but I'm going to tidy this up very soon, probably today. New ideal heating boiler. Functions very, very well, much more efficient than our previous one. Previous one was 14 years old, as you can see, all switched off there. I've already turned off the isolation switch and pulled the fuse out. So here's the old programmer. The issue with this really is these buttons here are all sticking in bits and pieces. It's just not what I want at the moment. And new programmer. There it is there that we're going to install. Right. Underneath there are two screws which attach to the back plate. I've just undone those and I'm hoping I can just lift up and this one will come away. So there we are, and that leaves us with our back plate. Now on our back plate you can see a number of things that are worth noting. So we've got 6 terminals, of which 4 are being used. If I just go a little bit closer, we can see that we have neutral and live, and then we have 2 spaces, and then we have 3 and 4. 3 is typically to call for the hot water, 4 is typically to call for the heating. Now you can also pick up that's a red, and just previously we'd connected the pump to that red wire up in the loft in the junction box. So that's our really important wire to connect in the junction box, and all we're going to try and do is swap these over like for like. The back of this one here is pretty much identical, and you can see it's got the same 2 screws, and all we're going to do is pull that off and then refix it. Now when you get the information from Hive, in your little booklet you get a series of labels, really handy, you can use those. I may put a bit of pen on mine as well, an indelible marker, just in case they fall off. And then we have the information that we're going to use as well. So they sell 2 sorts of systems, single channel and dual channel. Because this is a convection boiler, a condensing boiler, then we've got 2 channels here, and you can see that we've got the neutral in 1, we've got the live in 2. Then we're not going to use the heating off and the water off in 1 and 2, and we're going to use 3 and 4 for hot water on and heating on. It's also got an earth connection as well on it, which we'll do to the back of the Patras box. Right, let's see what happens. So here we are then. Original black plate off. You see the Patras box there. You can see a little bit of space around the edge of the tiles when I retrialed that previously. I've got to think of a way of solving that a little bit perhaps. And then I've got the wires that are in there. Blue back on the left hand side are the neutrals. I put a cable tie on just to hold them together. And then red, yellow, brown. Next one in is the live, and then blue is hot water on and red is central heating on, so they're all there. These are now going to be connected across onto the appropriate pads here, which is neutral on the left, live second from the left, and then the blue hot water wire to 3 and the red heating on to 4. I've also got to sort myself a little earth out as well. So these will all go onto this back plate here. Hopefully that will go together quite sweetly. So we're now coming towards the end of the practical part of the installation. There's the Hive back plate in place. You can see it's pretty much centralled on that location is there. That's some fairly poor tile cutting by myself. That's pre me owning a tile saw though. So it was cut out with various files and so on. Anyway, working from left to right then, the 3 neutral wires, which are blue, black, screwed in place. Then the 3 live wires, brown, red and yellow, all in place. 2 spaces which are for water off in 1, heating off in 2, and then the blue in 3, which is water on, and the red in 4, which is heating on. So that's all in place, reasonably well centered, And I've also added an earth into it as well, just to complete it, which wasn't on my previous programmer. So all that remains now is for me to put the cover on, have a little check around, and then put a bit of power into it, I think, and see what happens. Fingers crossed. So here we are then. The system's just been fired up. So power put on from the isolating switch, Hive terminal center here activated. The top green light shows the Wi-Fi connection, so that's great. And then I've just gone and pressed the button on the right hand side of the bottom, which is the heating, and that's all fired up. If you just check on my boiler there, you can see water temperature at present is 63 degrees C and all functioning well. And then presumably if I just press the hot water, there it is, it overrides and away it goes. Very, very easy installation, and in fact no worries about being too close to the chassis of the boiler. That 300mm seems to be okay with only a third of that. Programmer on the wall then, and let's just press center button there. Actual temperature comes up, wait a minute, and target temperature 19.3 actual, target there. And then we can go through the menu and do lots and lots of planning and so on. But that's something for probably another video, but it all seems to function. And if we just press the center of the main button there at the minute, actual temperature comes up and it just tells us that the heating is on manual, so it's been overridden, all is functioning well together with the current time. Very happy with the installation, and what can I do next? Well, learn how to program it, I suspect.